Well, yeah,
I
and
was actually just gonna say that. Like, I've completely given up on trying to save for retirement. Like, I don't even bother.
yeah.
Because uh, reason numero uno is I don't even know I'll live that long, for one thing.
My concern is historically when inflation starts to happen, governments tend to overcorrect. They don't really know what's going on because they never did to begin with. Yeah, yeah.
I went looking for apartments and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll think on it. And they're like, well, it goes up in price tomorrow. And I was like, is tomorrow like the day that all the prices change? And they're like, no, the prices change daily. I'm like, it's an apartment. I pay rent one time a month. How is the price going to be doing this like every day in between? Like
80% of all money ever came from just the last 2 years. So, and I'll tell you what, if you think inflation's bad right now, just wait. The forces take a long time to catch up. It's sort of like a spring. You know, you pull this end and it takes a minute, like a slinky. It takes a minute for the other end to catch up to it.
What if the whole idea of the economy is kind of a brainwashing exercise? Now, this sounds all conspiracy theory and woo, but
oh, I'm already on board.
Here's our currency. If you, the viewer, are still enjoying this conversation, please share this video.
And comment down there. It doesn't cost you anything to share. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Like, it doesn't cost you anything to put a comment down there. This is, like, interestingly, the most simultaneously anarchist and socialist video that we've ever done.
See, I swear there aren't that many differences. Second star to the right and straight on till welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford, and you know the whole shebang, should boozle, shwee, like and share.
Skibbity bop, boo, bow.
And subscribe. Do it. I'm a little loopy. I've been working like a month straight. So.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Well,
and I just got my dad out of the hospital, and my cat just died. So yeah.
Yeah. God.
Pardon me if I'm a little effed up right now.
Yeah, you know, this year's been rather a shitty one, honestly.
Oh yeah. This decade's not off to a great start, really.
No, exactly. Well, I just keep thinking of that meme that I saw. What was it? Oh, geez, it was the what if 2021 was just the what do they call it? The trailer for 2022. You know, like it's basically just. That was setting.
That was just the tip.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like we got all kinds of crazy things happening this year. I mean, there's cool things, but there's a lot of like nuts ass things happening. So anyway, well, I haven't even said my side of things. I'm Eric Rosenblatt. I haven't been working quite as much as Casey, but I'm a little tired too. So we'll just kind of wing it and see how it goes. Don't forget we write our own music, and there's probably going to be a fresh new song down there at the end of the episode. Timestamp right here in this general area. I might be. That's phallic.
I think you're a little off to the stage left. Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
Timestamp's like right about here. There we go. Yeah. uh, anyway, so yeah, stick around to the end of the show and listen to the song. And if you want to help us out, you can go to patreon.com/KSMBigcast and you get
is a great deal, I should say.
Yeah.
Like for $2.50 a month, you can get all the songs, like just all of them, and there's a new one every week. So like that's a really screaming deal, which has not yet been affected by inflation, mind you. Which it would seem everything else has.
I'm gonna guess that's probably what you'd like to talk about today.
I think, yeah, like it's something that's bugging everybody. Everybody's noticed it, unless you're so mega rich and people buy things for you, and like you just have your head in the clouds, like you're feeling it,
Yeah, well, and honestly, even if you're mega rich, people with a lot of money tend to buy more expensive stuff. So if more expensive stuff gets more expensive, I mean, it's a percentage thing, not necessarily a dollar amount. So your $10 million yacht, is suddenly like 15 million. You're like, what the hell?
Has that happened though? Has the top end of things really gone up that much? At least like in a relative sense.
I think it takes a little bit of time for that to sort of cycle through the economy. So probably not now. Of course, talking of like yachts and stuff, certain building materials like wood, for instance, are very expensive now. So especially special ones like teak that are commonly used on boats, those are going to be a lot more money. So I'm sure everybody is kind of feeling it, but like you said, if you have people that do the buying, then you just are oblivious to it.
Isn't teak kind of like the low end of wood for ships though?
No, it's commonly used because of its properties in regards to resiliency when it comes to salt water and sun and stuff. It's a common material that I don't know if it would be like the low end, but it's not like the finest wood you could get, but it's certainly like.
Well, I'm just remembering back in the 15th century, it was a little bit, on the cheap end, but inflation.
Yeah, exactly.
And not that I'm a vampire. I used to play this video game, Uncharted Waters, and it was great because you would like build ships and you would sail around the world and trade spices and things like that, and you'd learn all about geography and stuff, and
that's cool,
and a little bit about economy too. Like teak was a little bit cheaper than other types of wood, and it was pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's certainly it's cheaper than some, but more expensive than like say pine. Pine is like the bottom of the barrel as far as that goes.
But it smells great.
It really does. Not as good as cedar. Like cedar is probably the best.
Yeah.
But pine, oh man, that's a great smell. But anyway, I guess we're kind of hey, it's what happens when you're tired. We kind of ramble a bit, but yeah, inflation. Like so, currently when we're recording this in 2022, as was predicted by people, given all the crazy spending that happened during the unknown virus of unspecified origin, that inflation would happen because, hey, you pump a bunch of money into the economy and it devalues the currency, and everybody did it. It's not isolated to like the US or anything. Everybody did it. And it's because we have a fiat currency that you can just create more. And they call it the hidden tax too. Actually, I have a short minute microscopy about inflation that kind of covers a few of the basic things. But it's kind of a tax, because if you save money for a while and then you go to spend it later, your buying power is less than it was when you put it into savings.
And like many taxes, it really takes the biggest impact on the lower income folks, because it's like, when you've got expendable income, inflation isn't going to hurt nearly as bad as when you're living paycheck to paycheck, and suddenly those paychecks aren't cutting it.
Well, yeah, if that's the thing. Well, and I would say it's not necessarily like lower income, but it's your margins, right? Like how close to the edge you are, paycheck to paycheck, because there are people who make quite a bit of money that are still kind of in the same boat, I guess.
Yeah, like I'm not what you would consider poor, I guess, but I'm still paycheck to paycheck. So
yeah, so if costs go up even a little, like you might find yourself in a situation where you're like, I might have to have top ramen tonight, and they're like, okay, fine, a packet of top ramen is $2, and you're like, fuck.
yeah,
Like that. But yeah, it does certainly. Income tax doesn't necessarily affect the lowest of the low. Sales tax does, but inflation certainly does. Like the people in the lowest end get shafted the most by inflation.
yeah.
Because they can't. There's no point in saving. Like
It's impossible to save.
Well,
I was actually just going to say that. Like, I've completely given up on trying to save for retirement. Like, I don't even bother.
Yeah.
Because reason numero uno is I don't even know I'll live that long, for one thing. and two, I don't know that I want to. I'd rather just spend that money now and enjoy my life as much as I can. I'm already falling apart. So it's like, yeah,
Well, hey, that's actually kind of good advice. Just, carpe diem. Just,
yeah,
live for now. And I mean, that's not to say be irresponsible. Like put aside a little bit of money, try to, I don't know, plan for the future a little bit. But yeah, the whole idea of our grandparents' generation of, oh, you save money and that kind of thing. No, that's all gone now.
No,
that's completely gone.
Like I'll probably save a little here and there, but then I'll be like, you know what? I really want a Harley again, and I'll just get it,
yeah, exactly. That, like, I bought a sailboat for the very same reasons. I'm like, fuck it, why not? Like, well, you only live once, right?
Now we sound all privileged. We're like, I just bought a boat, and I'm just gonna get a Harley. But
well, to be
we're
fair,
also like, like if catastrophe happened, we'd be out on the street in a second. So
yeah, exactly. and well, and if it was a zombie apocalypse, two-wheeled vehicles, the best way to survive. You can negotiate the terrain much better than four-wheeled vehicles. And well, on a boat, well, yeah, and a boat, yeah, zombies can't swim. Well, most of them.
There needs to be a zombie movie where they swim,
exactly.
like really well.
Yeah. But it's also, from my perspective, I can't, there is no way, given the trajectory of the housing market, if it continues, it won't continue in perpetuity, I can assure you that. But if it continues kind of along the same lines, I'm never going to be able to like reasonably afford to buy a house, nor would I want to, because it's asinine to pay that kind of money for a little starter house, So my retirement plan is a sailboat. Like, I'm going to live on that thing until I die. And I can travel, I can move, and
do those depreciate or appreciate? Because like most vehicles depreciate, but then it's also somewhat of a living space. So
yeah, they do,
but they also like have entropy and all that. So,
exactly. Well, and the being in salt water especially does tend to degrade boats faster. They do depreciate, but not quite as fast as cars.
It's funny that salt like preserves food and stuff, but it like eats away at everything else.
Well, and there's other factors at work. There's in the ocean, there's like sea life, little critters that attach to the boat, and organisms that grow. You get algae and stuff growing, and of course, if you have a metal hull, then there's that whole electrical field thing that eats away, kind of electrolyzes the hull away. So keep up with your zincs out there. But it's like, so it wasn't for me. Like, getting a boat wasn't like a frivolous expense. It was sort of like a self-preservation expense, future proofing. Like, okay, now I have a way, should things get crazy, right? I could move out of here and I can move into the boat and live on the boat, and that is way cheaper than here. Like, I just got a utility bill in the mail and it was like $739. And that and I looked, all of the materials usage, so you know, the electricity, the water, all that stuff is pretty much the same year to year, but it's markedly more expensive now this year than last year with the same energy usage. And I think that's in part due to inflation to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, the real question is like, so I can see why certain things have gone up in price, because, you know, there are a lot of moving parts. But it seems like everything has, when it didn't necessarily need to, at least seemingly on the surface.
Well, inflation is an independent process. It has nothing to do with needs. It has to do with supply and demand. So the amount of money supply essentially in the economy affects that. It affects kind of like what work is to the currency and what the currency is to commodities or products. It's sort of a perceptual thing. Like, you know, if you live on or let's say you're on a deserted island, like shipwreck or something, and you're there, a bottle of fresh water is priceless. But if you live near a lake, well, a bottle of water doesn't mean anything, so you can just get water out of the lake. It's like, it doesn't mean anything at all. So it's kind of like how much there is available for people, and that changes people's perception. Now, right now, currently with all the coof effects and things that have been going on, there's supply chain issues which exacerbate that even further. And so it's kind of like, it's difficult to split what is an effect of worker shortage, supply chain problems, and what is inflation.
What exactly is at the root of this supply chain problem? Has anyone actually seen this supply chain problem? Like, I keep hearing about it.
I wonder the exact same thing too, and I wonder if it's people trying to minimize and kind of downplay the effects of inflation so they don't create panic, because the panic is a problem. If people think that it's something really terrible is happening, you know,
better get toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because people don't know. They're first off, for one, they're unprepared for any eventuality. Honestly, most people don't even have a flashlight, like an actual flashlight, let alone anything else, like a little bit of extra of something. So when it looks like something's happening, you know, there's a snowstorm coming, well, they go into the stores and they clean the shelves out.
I've got flashlights, but anytime the power goes out, I can't find them because it's dark.
Well, that's when you use your cell phone to find the flashlight, and then because you don't want to burn, like, you want to keep your phone charged. So using that as a flashlight is totally stupid. You want to have a separate light source. Like, I always in my pocket carry this flashlight. I got my little, so I can like have my phone. First off, also, if I want to record something like video of what's going on and have a light source separately, it's kind of nice.
So you've got like Batman's utility belt going on. Do girls ever give you shit for how much stuff you carry? Because like I get teased for that. So, you know, I got like a knife, a Leatherman, my wallet, my keys, some chapstick, my phone clip, and that's about it, really. But it's noticeable.
Yeah, I don't think that's really excessive. That's just what you have. Well, okay, you could get
you did like, was it a minute microscopy or a KSU, a kitchen sink university on the everyday carry?
Yeah,
and you had like a million fucking things.
Oh yeah, my little Altoids tin kit and stuff. Yeah, like, well, and women have the same thing. Like, there's no reason for women to give guys shit for having a utility belt or a bunch of things, because like, well, what about your purse?
Right.
all the stuff that you carry in a purse. Well, we
That you
don't
can
have
accidentally
purses.
leave or have stolen quite
Yeah,
easily.
yeah. It's like it's nice to have it handy, right within reach, and whether it be in a carry bag that you're carrying, or in your pockets or on clips on your belt or pouches or something. Everybody has stuff like that, and I think that's good. There's no reason to give people shit for that.
Yeah. And,
But
they'll all say that, like, our jeans don't have pockets and stuff. And this, this is a digression, but like, it's always kind of baffled me, right? Like, women will bitch so much about their fashion, and how, like, men are driving it because they want to see all your curves and stuff like that. And it's like, why don't you just start your own clothing line and, like, have pockets and everything, and,
yeah,
like, normalize wearing your pants just like dudes do, and ditch the purse, and,
yeah.
like, put Louis Vuitton out of business. Like, you can do it. Why not?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
why complain about something? Why not just make a business and fix it?
well, and honestly, that you really made a great point there. Like, if everybody's complaining about it, well,
There's a market.
yeah, there's a market. See a need, fill a need. Like, well, you could become wealthy
See a
overnight
whole
by.
fill.
Well, that's
What
a
you
whole
said.
different. That's our OnlyFans channel there. You almost let slip. Uh, uh, but yeah, like, go ahead and do it, or crowdsource it, or crowdfund it or something like that. Like, there are companies that do that, but here's the thing: when you have an alternative means of carrying, for instance, guys usually, I mean, if you work in like a high-rise building, you might carry a briefcase. I don't know how many people actually do anymore, but typically women have purses, and purses are capacitous. They have volume, they can carry things, they've got pockets and stuff. So it's kind of like, well, that's redundant to have pockets in the rest of your body when you have a giant pocket that you're carrying. Guys don't carry that usually, so guys need like a utility belt and like pockets with pockets on the legs and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it
Which are actually kind of hard to find. Like, I
yeah,
prefer those because then I don't have to wear, like, I can disperse the weight a little bit more rather
yeah.
than just
Well,
having it all around my waist.
actually, that's a really good thing too, because if you have pockets on your legs or something, if you have like a shirt with like pockets up here or something, a pen holder or whatever,
Mhm.
it's all spread out, so everything has a place instead of it being just a bucket that everything's thrown into. You have to sift through to find something. I
Yeah.
like I like the utility belt structure where I know where everything is. I don't have to look. I just like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
need a knife. I just reach over here and got a knife. There it is. Because it's on that side of my pants, in that clip to the side of my pocket.
Hmm.
Um, so oh, I guess we should probably go back to the
The
original topic.
inflation. Yeah.
This is actually a really, really good one, and I'd kind of like to hear people's ideas and thoughts on this particular matter in the comment section. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about guys with utility belts and pouches all over the place, and the bugle boy pants with the pockets in the knees and stuff?
Well,
And
actually, this is a good digression, actually, because could that be a fix for inflation? Like, just start your own business and make it your goal to cater to people that can't really afford much, and to operate your business in a very conservative manner to make that be, the case.
Well,
Uh,
actually, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, that is the cure. From a personal standpoint, if you are an individual suffering from the effects of inflation, the best way to deal with that is to not be in an industry or in a situation that is separate from inflation. So employment, being employed by an employer, there's a lag between
yeah.
inflation and wages. That's just a given. Like, well, it kind of like you're saying about the top end expenses and stuff. It takes a minute for things to kind of filter through the system and
Mhm.
level out. And of course, inflation is constant at least in the US. This last couple of years kind of being an exception to that, but it's always a constant thing. So it's like chasing the rainbow. You're never ever catching up.
Yeah.
But if you start a business, now you're the one dictating prices. You're the one following the trends, essentially. So you're not beholden to a person up here who's doing their thing, and then they're like, well, these are the wages, and now you have to like negotiate or whatever, change jobs or something to get better wages, or wait until they finally figure out like, oh, we need a cost of living raise. Like, oh shit, it's been like 5 years and we haven't given anybody a raise. Like, that's irrelevant at that point, because you're dealing direct with the public or with industry or something like that. So you can now adjust automatically to the fluctuations in the economy. So that I mean, I guess, like, I wish in the US it was easier to start and operate a business. It's not really that easy. But I guess it depends on what you go into, what you want to do.
It's easier than it is a matter of like expense, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also like get out of it what you put into it.
That's true.
But that said, I mean, you and I started a business on $1,000 cash, and like, admittedly, a rather large line of credit that we probably didn't deserve.
Well, and we might have kind of burned that a little too quickly. But
yeah.
You learn things. It's like anything else. That our first business is it's no different than your first job. You learn things. Most businesses fail. It's okay. Totally okay to fail. But what you do is you take away from it some lessons, and then you try again and improve.
Here's an interesting thought, though. Inflation, you say it's always been occurring, and that's of course true, but it's interesting to see that the curve has been exponentially rising.
Yeah.
Late, like just in our lifetime. So let's take McDonald's, for example. Like, whatever they were, 29-cent burgers when they started. I don't know.
Oh God, I miss those days. Oh, and the Taco Bell had, what was it, like 39-cent tacos or something like that.
But the point is, like, under $1, we remember those days. And that goes all the way back into like the 1950s, when all this like fast food stuff started taking off, right?
Yeah.
And so the inflation back then was more of catering to supply. Like, they inflated their business. They're like, oh, there's more demand than we can, put out here. So let's open another location rather than like raising our costs. Let's give more supply. But now it's like, oh, the demand is going up. Let's crank the price up on the demand and make more profit off of it. That's what's happening now. And that's what's really, like, in my opinion, kind of like giving that extra oomph to the inflation, and it just like builds on itself.
Well, the important thing to look at is no industry exists in isolation.
But like, for instance, seeing a huge demand for like stuff, and stuff is closing down left and right. Like, the demand's only getting higher.
Well, and okay, and that actually goes right along with the supply and demand curves. Like, the supply, and we just touched on the supply chain kind of thing. If there's less supply and more demand, prices rise. If there's less demand and more supply, prices go down. That's, it's just kind of how it is. So if everybody's scrambling, there's 1,000 people rushing to try to get 10 of something. Well, those things are going to be scrambled for very hard. But if there's 10 people scrambling for thousands of things, well, they're going to be like, whatever, I'll take my time, and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's true for finite things. It's like, oh, there's only 10 of these left. But it like McDonald's, like businesses did before like all this crazy money inflation started. The businesses would inflate. It's like, oh shit, there's only 10 burgers left at the end of the day, and there's like 100 people in line outside. We got to build more stores. we can just increase the demand. And those are the things that are closing down, like things that you can have more than that one of, like their skills, their, like entertainment, like they're intangible things that are always going to be in supply. Yeah, endlessly.
Well, but burgers aren't necessarily infinite. Like there's still a certain quantity that you can get. It takes time. Employees cost money. The building costs money. The utilities, you have to pay for that. The taxes, all this stuff.
But the demand is there. The demand is there for the jobs, and the demand is there for the products too.
Well, but if the supply hasn't changed, right? Like they don't have any more coming in. Like the flow has not changed at all, but the suction to pull more out of that flow has increased. Well, that would explain what's going on right now in that regard.
Sorry, I'm still lost on the word suction.
I'm just trying to explain, like, people explain electricity in terms of pipes and water flow and stuff. And, in a sense you could, well, it's a bad analogy from a technical standpoint, but it's a good analogy from a simplistic, like, okay, make it easy for people to comprehend without having to go into all these details about every facet of how things operate.
Water and electronics really don't mix.
No, exactly. But like the whole pipe thing is totally a good, very easy way to explain it. And in that sense, that's kind of what it is. There's a flow, a supply chain flow, products coming in. The business is trying to, they can't order too much because we've kind of grown into this kind of just-in-time delivery system. It's sort of become the standard. Yeah. Pretty much everywhere. McDonald's doesn't have like a warehouse. They're ordering things kind of on the fly to arrive just in time to be used by the consumer. So if consumer demand goes up and nothing has changed with that supply, I mean,
that's not the only reason stuff like that happens though, because those things have like expiration, so like you really want to be kind of like reducing your waste. So that's not necessarily like a setback is all I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, of course. It would be really bad if you had to throw away a bunch of stuff that you bought because it went bad. And so they do try to delicately balance that. But then the issue here is like, it's not just a matter of burger patties are responsible for the cost. It's everything is responsible for the cost. It's like, you think about what, say McDonald's, for instance, what they have to deal with. So they have a building, right? A lot of them are franchises, so that does kind of play in. But they have a building, and the building costs money, to heat, to cool, to power. There's property taxes you have to deal with. You've got supplies, all the stuff that your soda stuff, the materials, your cleaning supplies, your toilet paper for the bathrooms, your napkins, your straws, whatever, packaging, all that stuff. All those things are sourced from all over the place, and they're all affected by everybody else. Honestly, like it's a web. That's the thing. Like it's every single product that is affected by every single other product in some way down the line.
Here we go. When I'm elected governor, I'm going to try to get a.
Hey, wait, are you running? I say bye, Inslee.
I think I probably should. I think I'm going to try to get a law enacted that any business in Washington State that is, brick and mortar needs to have like at least the option to purchase their real estate that they operate their business on, so that they are, there's no middleman sucking rent off of them, or, like and it'll appreciate and things like that, so it's almost like a thank you for like inflating the commerce by inflating their, back end. It's like, oh, here's a, something that'll pay dividends in the long run or something. And
and
keep you afloat.
I get where you're going with that, but of course, changing that would mean changing some pretty core, yeah, because it has to do with like how property works in the state.
Well, simple. We'll just go back to the way the Native Americans did it.
Yeah,
Nobody owns it.
yeah, nobody owns it. Yeah, exactly.
You have to own a business. Wait, this is sounding a lot like early America. Might not be a good idea.
Yeah, probably
Never mind.
not.
I should be governor.
yeah, exactly. Well, so an important factor to consider when it comes to this whole inflationary force is that the number I've heard is like 80% of the US currency in circulation, be it digital or physical or whatever, has been created in the last 2 years. 80% of all money ever came from just the last 2 years. So, and I'll tell you what, if you think inflation's bad right now, just wait. The forces take a long time to catch up. It's sort of like a spring, you pull this end and it takes a minute, like a slinky. It takes a minute for the other end to catch up to it. Yeah. And economies
and it's gaining force that whole time.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the tape measure that's you're like shh, and pull the little lever and it like whacks you in the knuckle. Yeah, exactly.
Need to link to context.
Halloween episode. So it takes time. I mean, it's actually like forces of nature. It's kind of similar. The climate and stuff in regards to solar activity versus the temperature of the water and temperature, heat circulating, and how that affects the climate over time. It's like a 10-year cycle or something. Well, actually, there's a whole bunch of cycles, but same thing with economies. They work the same way. It's a very complex thing. I don't think anybody really fully understands it, but there's no way that you can create this much currency and not have really bad inflation. And this is my big concern about this. And I won't make a prediction because I don't know what's going to happen, but my concern is historically when inflation starts to happen, governments tend to overcorrect. They don't really know what's going on because they never did to begin with. Yeah. And so, in order to placate the public, they kind of create more money. Like, well, the problem of not having enough money because things are expensive is to create more money and more money and more money. And pretty soon you end up in a cycle of hyperinflation, which is it's a cycle. And
they're building more McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can only build so many before it takes up all the space.
Yeah, before it's like gas stations. There's one in every single corner of every single intersection.
Multiple.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes all four corners.
Mm-hmm. Well, and hyperinflation, I wouldn't say it's not like there's a defining line between just general inflationary forces and hyperinflation. But it's pretty clear when hyperinflation is happening. I remember reading a story about the hyperinflationary period during Weimar Germany where, husbands would be working and they'd get paid multiple times throughout the day, and their wives would come and collect the partial paycheck so they could go shopping before prices rose. It went that fast. And then, of course, the economy, not the economy, the currency completely imploded. And, what happened after that. So I do kind of worry because those things happen. It's sort of it's a reaction that these sorts of systems have to those kinds of conditions. And we're not immune to it. It doesn't matter how complex your bureaucracy is. It's not immune to things like that happening. Just because it hasn't happened, well, it sort of happened, but just because it hasn't really happened here doesn't mean it won't, because it isn't a function of like what government is. It's a function of humans, like how we think and how we behave faced with certain conditions. And historically, hyperinflation happens very easily and very suddenly. And this is the thing that concerns me too, with like people that are living on the edge. that are the paycheck to paycheck people just barely scraping by. If we go down that path, and I could see it happening if the whole thing with like Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, all this stuff, if some kind of war happens, we might actually see some sort of pseudo hyperinflationary event.
I tell you where I've seen it. I mean, not like within the day kind of pace, but 5-6 years ago, even, I went looking for apartments and I was like, okay, well, I'll think on it. And they're like, well, it goes up in price tomorrow. And I was like, is tomorrow like the day that all the prices change? And they're like, no, the prices change daily. I'm like, it's an apartment. I pay rent one time a month. How is the price going to be doing this like every day in between? Like, how are you, where's your markers? Like, where are you like drawing two lines and saying like, this is the amount of time we need to evaluate the price? Like, that's ridiculous.
That is kind of nuts. And of course,
a daily real estate evaluation, and then like your margin mixes and blah blah blah.
It is kind of like that to some extent in that regard. I mean, that's the reason that would fluctuate during the initial period but not later, is because you sign a contract to pay this much for this duration. But it is happening with housing because there's a finite supply and there's a vast demand. And well, that's a whole different topic, and it has nothing to do with inflation. Well, sort of.
And there's plenty of supply, actually.
Well, and not only that, but there's plenty of space to build more supply. But you've got zoning, you've got permits, you've got all kinds of random shit going on. That,
I mean, there's environmental concerns to that too. Like you don't want to cut down every tree, you know.
No, that's true. I agree, but that isn't the reason why. It's arbitrary. It has really nothing to do with that.
It's mostly about people wanting to be way too fucking close to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Or not being okay with being close to each other. Like, hey, maybe it's all right to live in an apartment for a while, and we should be building high-rise apartments. I totally believe in that. 100-story apartment building would drastically alter the landscape of housing costs. But here in Tacoma, we can't build
those. Are always the $5 million one, though.
Well, originally, but if you're asking $5 million, how many customers are you going to get? If you're a burger place and your burgers are all $30 a piece, how many burgers are you going to sell?
Well,
how many homeless people are going to buy your burgers? How many?
That was kind of the point I was trying to get at with, like, all of a sudden in the last 20 years, we've seen prices go like absolutely nuts.
Well, that's true. And now you can ask whatever you want. These, multi-million-dollar apartments, you can ask whatever you want. But if you don't have customers, eventually the price comes down to the point where the customers can afford the place or the product that you're selling. That's the equilibrium. It's like a force of nature almost.
But with things like housing, it's like once you've got them, they're there for long term. Like, you don't have to worry about it. Like,
yeah.
So like they're really only doing all the work to like find people on the front end, and then it's maintenance after that,
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem, is there is plenty of demand for super expensive hoity-toity housing, and they all get bought up because all those people can, and many of them take up multiple houses that they don't even occupy most of the year and things like that. And they could afford it, and they got it, and they sit on it for 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
Well, but there's also demand for low cost housing. But if you're a developer and you're going to drop, like, it's an insane cost to build like an apartment complex, like out of this world cost to do it. So which one are you going to choose? Are you going to choose the one that's going to net you the most returns, or are you going to choose the one that's going to net you like almost nothing? You might use
the existing buildings for the low income.
Well, that's true. And honestly, I think the zoning problem is really, the zoning circumstance is the problem. Like, we here in Tacoma, there's all kinds of disused industrial space, a bunch of warehouses, all kinds of space all over the place, but you can't live there because the city tells you, well, that's commercial, that's industrial, that can't be residential. You can't. No, those two don't mix. White and black don't mix. That's what they're doing. And here you are, like, well, there's what about all this space over here? Why aren't you building apartments over there? Well, because we've determined at some point randomly a long time ago that this is not for people to live in.
Well,
like
like that's another thing I would do as governor. If there was like a giant, like empty industrial space not being used whatsoever,
well, I would have
the state purchase it and have that be homeless shelters and
totally on board with that. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. Or if it was abandoned, right? They just jump ship and it's just sitting there rotting. Yeah. Oh, totally.
This is the thing about government that people don't talk about, and it's waste. And they do talk about how much they just throw money out. They're like, oh, let's waste all this money we've got. But they're also passing on tons of opportunities to make more money without using tax.
Or not just make more money, but like solve problems.
Yeah.
Fix things. Like, isn't that what we pay you to do? Isn't that why you check the checkbox on the ballot? Is so that you can, like, I don't know, fix stuff that's too big for the individual to fix?
Yeah. That's the real waste. Like the real waste is the lost potential, like, because we don't have kitchen sink microscopy style governments or, thinkers.
Like, oh, dude, I could see that would be our method. We would just live stream and then like
once a week we'd get drunk and fix the problems in the state.
and just take everybody's ideas from the comments and kind of discuss them and bring people on as guests to talk about stuff.
That's what a real like leader should be, is someone who like
listens,
gets the crew together and comes up with a plan. And it's like no one person has all the answers, and you can't just like rely on some hand-picked few to figure everything out. Like, you've got to go to the masses.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you what, if
you're kind of arguing for the majority being right, by the way.
not exactly. I'm just kind of entertaining some thoughts. It's not a matter of like, majority rules. It's more like entertaining everybody's ideas and then sitting down and thinking about them and sort of putting things at different scales. Like, okay, that's actually a great idea that nobody's ever thought of before. Yeah, that comes out when you have these kinds of conversations. When you
because none of that's heard now.
No,
it has to fit in a binary bucket, or it's not being heard.
Yeah, which is totally
political again.
Yeah. Well, I think this is bigger than politics, honestly. Like, this is speaks to a much bigger thing. But yeah, like, I think if you're trying to solve a particular problem, say we'll pick like homelessness, because that's kind of what we were talking about in a sense, or housing, I guess, which is sort of related. Wouldn't you want to have a dialogue with, and I mean a dialogue, not a monologue, with the people that are being affected by that particular situation? Wouldn't you want to like actually talk to homeless people and find out, hey, what are your ideas?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure like most people are going to have a bunch of wackadoodle, like unthought out ideas that don't account for all the variables. But out of that, if you get enough people together, they're going to come up with a genius plan that is like Stephen Hawking level, that it's like, what the hell?
Like, bring back the town hall.
No. Oh, I totally agree. That should happen.
Yeah.
But it's
really all that is. Like it's not a new concept, and it's not an untested concept. In fact, it worked really well.
And in fact, that is sort of the economic principle called the wisdom of the crowds, where I won't go into the whole story about that, but if you get enough minds looking at something, most people are a little bit off target. But when you kind of average all of those ideas together, they're like, that's a bullseye.
You're
They're
casting a
spot on.
wider net.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Or a
you're
more
not gonna.
meshed net. I guess that would be a more meshed
Yeah, probably.
net.
But you're not going to get that when you have somebody who is essentially their interest is in getting elected to do
Yeah.
a thing or being appointed to do a thing. And there's no incentive. Where is the incentive to actually do right? And
Yeah.
why would you expect that person to do, have better ideas than anybody else? They're just as much a dumbass as the next guy. Like, why are they the one that's making that decision? Why not this other person over here?
Yeah, that would be very scientific. And that reminded me of something I was going to bring up, I think when Powers was on, but I forgot. And then it was, I think I just forgot it again.
Oh, shit. Oh, man.
Damn it. Oh. No, going back to when we were talking about anarchy, I feel like it would be very scientific to have anarchy because that's your control group, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
we don't have nowhere in the world. I'm not even just talking about the US. Like, nowhere in the world do we actually have any data that what we're doing makes any sense.
you're right. Oh, that's a good point. Like, where's the like zero level to compare to?
Yeah, we're just comparing each other to each other or ourselves over time. It's like we actually don't try that many different things.
No, that's true.
It's
In
all
fact,
a very few or one controlling many.
uh-huh.
Uh,
Making decisions for a vast number of people.
it's just the level of which you're deluded into thinking you as a common person actually have a say in what ends up happening.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really differs.
Well, and the
Whoa.
here, dude, man,
Dude,
hold on a
Cobra
second.
Man.
I gotta hit this for a second. Well, and the criteria for becoming a part of landing a position in that field of politics, the criteria are actually, well, they have nothing to do with what you're doing. It's a popularity
Popularity
contest.
and
Yeah.
experience. Like,
What does that really
experience in being popular with other people.
yeah, like, okay, what have you actually accomplished? Where's the money, Lebowski?
Rug really tied the room together, man.
Exactly. But ooh, man, I feel like this is gonna blow people's minds, this kind of direction that we're going. But maybe we should. It's all propaganda. It's all made up. Like, the whole entire thing is made up. It's like religion.
Yeah.
You're welcome to believe what you want, but believe it on your own.
Like, how we evolved to have religion most likely to just guide us philosophically as we were maturing as a species. I think money is kind of an economical equivalent of that. Like, having money and all that stuff is basically an organized religion for how we conduct ourselves with each other.
Well, yeah, and
the transactional basis. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Or
yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of important to have a way of sort of like a neutral exchange medium. But the centrally managed monetary system is where the problems begin, because it's not something that's really truly democratic or anarchistic that has no outside influence. It's like absolutely controlled to the core, and then everybody's expected to utilize it. Well, and it's like, okay, but then who's controlling that?
Well, here's the thing though, like, the scratch your back, scratch mine theory, I think, speaks more to Like, if I do you a favor or whatever, and then someday, uh, the tables turn or whatever, we don't really have a way of saying like who's even or what, and then we just kind of don't even care. Like most of us probably aren't like keeping some kind of mental ledger on like how many favors you did like one of your friends, right? Like that would be pretty psychotic. Like
That'd be weird. Yeah.
so it's kind of weird that like we normalize like ascribing dollar values to things, or pounds or shillings or whatever. uh
Or shells or
yeah,
something.
like,
Yeah.
and then when it comes to just like doing someone a favor, like we just call that kindness and we go about our day. Like,
Yeah. And I guess the the only reason for having money or some let's say some kind of currency or something, whatever it is because sure, you could be altruistic and do favors for people, but eventually you're going to be doing favors for everybody and no one's going to be doing favors for you. But everybody wants, like, money is an easy way to kind of equalize that. So it's like, well, it doesn't matter who you
why would
are, it doesn't
somebody
matter what you
stop
look
giving you
like.
favors? Like,
Well, because it takes effort. So why, let me ask you, why do you go to work?
because I need to eat.
Well, and shelter and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I mean, if you rely on the goodness of everybody, uh, that could be, I mean, in general that might work, but I don't know. Yeah, it's
well, here's the thing. It's like if you're the guy that gives all of his bread away to people because they come by and they're hungry and they're looking for bread, and then suddenly you're hungry, well, you just join the herd and you find someone that will feed you.
unless there's no one that can feed you, but there's somebody who wants something, like maybe they're short on I don't know, heating oil or something like that, and that's where having some common something, anything, honestly, I don't care if it's shells or gold or what, crypto or something, like it's important to have something that does not have a connection to anything else or a reliance on any other system that's independent. um it honestly just works. Here's the problem, that all of the problems, like all of our economic woes, stem from the fact that most global currency systems are centrally controlled. They control it, not the market, not you and I. You and I deciding, hey, a shell is worth this much, or I'll take like six shells for that painting that you painted or whatever. Or you'd be like, well, I'll wax your car for 10 shells or something. Um, that's the right way to do it. The wrong way to do it is the way we're currently doing it, where you and I have no say in it. It's dictated by some people in the ivory tower, and we're basically at the whims of their behavior. Like, whoa, we're just going to make more of it. Well, why? Well, because inflation's good. That's the Federal Reserve, in their charter, it, like, part of their task is to create inflation, constant inflation, like a several percent inflationary force all the time. So basically, that system is built around the idea that every dollar you have now is going to be 2% less valuable next year.
That
Like,
that kind of thinking is exactly how I think of people who are like, "Oh my god, our population's declining. We need more people." It's like, why? What we don't need to keep growing. It's not
yeah.
doing anybody any good to keep our population growing.
No, and you're right. And well, and it doesn't. Yeah, growth, it can be good, or I
Inflation
guess
doesn't have to happen over and over and over again.
no. In fact, what we really should have is currency that does not fluctuate at all. Like, if we only had, let's assume there was only like $1 million on the whole planet. and there never will be any more. There's these dollars, and these exist, and those are the only ones that ever will exist. There will never be any inflation because there can never be any more dollars. It's a finite resource, so therefore it just becomes something you exchange. That would be good. Things would level out, and everybody would probably be pretty okay off. Like,
that's kind of, I don't know. I feel like that takes the economy out of it, and it goes to what I was talking about, where it's like you don't have any money, because if the money you have doesn't like change in value ever at all, what's the point of it?
Well, barter is an economy too. Economies don't have to do with currency; they have to do with exchange of goods and services and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, look at animals. Like, you don't really see any kind of torrential economy. I don't know.
Currential?
Currential?
Yeah. Monetary would be the proper term.
Need a curry now.
Yeah. Oh, dude, chicken curry, man. Monetary, like any kind of monetary exchange. Yeah.
But you know, they get along. They also rely on each other. You know, it doesn't seem like there's any evidence of grudge holding or like stinginess or, you know, any kind of I don't know, reactionary measure to like feeling stiffed or whatever. It's like, you know, there might be one goat that rams all the enemies off of this other goat, and this other goat doesn't do much, but you know, like makes a funny joke every now and then or something. You know, like you know, like the value you might see as two very different things, but like they don't seem to like give a shit about that sort of thing, you know?
No, it's true. And maybe some of this is a product of human evolution and the complexity of the human mind and human societies and things, that the way things are structured, it is more complex. And money is essentially tokenized work. Like, it's a way to reduce whatever is done into something that is like exchangeable to anybody. Like, if you, let's say you're I don't know, what do they call the people, the horseshoer people, the farrier? Farrier, yeah. So let's say you're a farrier, right?
I still have curry on the mind. So.
Yeah. so you put shoes on horses. Well, you know, you're out of bread because you've given it away to everybody that asked for it, and you want some bread, you want some food. You're like, man, oh, my stomach's grumbling, I'm getting hungry. You got to find something to eat. And the only thing you don't have any stuff to exchange. You just have your skills, and your skills are, you're a damn good farrier. And you go to the person who makes bread, the local person, and they say, well, you know, I don't actually have any horses. It's all robots. Can you program a computer? Because I could actually, like, if you could fix my code for my robots that do all the harvesting, I'd be totally cool with that. And you'd be like, nope, but you got horses that I can shoe? Like, that's the problem, is you need an intermediate step. And
there is an intermediate. Like, you find somebody who's really good with electronics that has a horse, and you put a shoe on their horse and tell them, hey, go fix this for me.
And no, that's a good point. But there was a really excellent Tailspin episode that addressed that exact thing. Mm-hmm. And in the end, they spent like massive amounts of fuel and time and days trying to figure things out, and ended up like basically where they started. Like,
so why do it at all?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of life you want. And the problem I have with, I guess it's a twofold thing. Like, the issues I see with monetary systems and currencies in general is, one, centralized control, which takes the democratic element completely out of it and makes it, well, that's a big problem, especially when it's a fiat currency where it's not like a thing, it's not a tangible thing. You could just like keep making more of them. Like if you took a $1 bill, apart from the little watermarks and the insets on current things, the paper is no different than $100 bill. It's the same thing. There's no difference. It's just the stuff that's printed on it that makes the difference. So it's totally arbitrary. So that's a problem. And also the fact that it's kind of become a cult where having more money becomes the goal.
Well,
like money is
currencies. Like it used to just be gold. You'd go to another country, they're like, "Hey, gold, right on." You know, like, and everybody wanted gold, and it was
exactly.
In fact, a one world currency.
Yeah,
that worked great.
Absolutely, because there's only so much gold on the earth, or so much silver, or whatever, is some finite resource that we can all agree on.
But people worry about a one world currency, like that's how we mostly operated ever in history.
Well, no, you're right. Yeah, because it's like if I have US dollars, Fed coin, and I go to China, they're like, well, no, you can't spend those here. Or I have pesos and I go to the US, and I want to buy like a burger at McDonald's, they're gonna be like, well, we don't take pesos. But back when things were more gold oriented, gold was pretty universal, ubiquitous. That was what everybody.
We need to have a role playing game where instead of like walking all over the world with your sack of 100 coins and just buying shit, like you got to go to like trade currency and like a bunch of boring shit like that. And like, oh, I had 100 coins over there. It's only 58 coins over here. Jesus.
No. I actually, if you're gonna do that, I like your previous idea of having to like commission somebody to do something for you, so your party grows and grows and grows. Pretty soon you have like 50 people, like as an RPG. So you're the farrier, but you found somebody you can exchange, horseshoeing for like buggy making, and then there's another person that's a buggy maker that they'll exchange for potatoes, and the potatoes you can exchange.
We need to make this game.
yeah, exactly. And it's all super complicated. Oh man. And that's the problem with barter. Like barter one-on-one like makes perfect sense. People do it all the time. They do it naturally. It's like, hey, you want this thing, I can do it. Or I have it and I want that thing, so let's trade. Like you always do that. Like I had a book that I really liked, and my friend had Europe's The Final Countdown, the vinyl, and I really wanted that, and both of us equally wanted each other's thing, and so we were like, well, hey, I guess I'll give you that book for that record, and everything was good. And I actually still have that record to this day. Nice. But that doesn't work. You can't go into a store. Imagine going into a grocery store that was totally barter based, and there's all these different sellers selling different things, and they want different things in exchange for whatever they're selling. It would be a madhouse. It'd be insane. So like it is important to have something, an intermediate something or other. Like the problem is when a small force controls the issuance and manipulation of said intermediate thing, that problems happen. Like inflation is a product of that. Like when did we ever vote on printing more money or more monetary creation? When did that happen?
March the 13th, 1987.
Oh, that's a very specific date. Is that when Phil Collins?
Some like nitpicker will try to like figure out like what happened on that date to what I'm like.
I was thinking like Phil Collins released like Susudio or something like that, right? But didn't that happen?
Susudio.
Like the problem isn't money. The problem is who is behind it. Like, or or I guess the fact that anybody is like controlling the reins of that. That's the issue. We do need some kind of, especially as a global economy, there's no way. Imagine ordering something from China, right? Some manufacturer in China that makes widgets, and you want the widget, and trying to sort out like what you could send them so they can send you the widget, or companies doing it in large proportions. Oh, it'd be like completely nuts. It's like, oh, well, we don't need cows, but if you send us cows, we could take the cows and trade them with these farmers over there, and then they'll give us milk, and then we'll take the milk over to this grocery store and sell it, or this company that bottles the milk, and they'll sell it to the grocery store. Then they'll give us the thing that we actually want for us to sell you these boats that we make.
And that's kind of why I think crowdsourcing doesn't work.
I think it can work.
Well, yeah. So can what you're describing. You might, like find great luck in that you only have to like make a small triangle of people to get what you want. But like for the most part, a lot of it would be quite a mess. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and I guess it depends. I actually think that there should be a global currency, that is beyond the scope and the reach of any government anywhere.
It'll like, just be driven by psychology.
yeah, a universally accepted finite resource of some sort. Even if it's completely ephemeral, right? Like crypto. That's why I think crypto, I believe in it very much, just like I believe in nuclear power. I think crypto is kind of, in this day and age, the only thing, because you can algorithmically create that shortage, the finiteness of it. Whereas like gold or silver, platinum or whatever, it's possible to find more of it. We don't quite know how much exists.
I still feel like it's
physical.
It's possible. I still feel like there's no reason it couldn't be possible to make more crypto. Like just what it is. But the difference between that and, a precious metal is that those weren't just like pretty shiny things that we valued. Like they actually had function. Like they still do have function, as electrolyte, or electrolysis sort of conductors and things like that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, gold is actually
are an actual like real commodity,
which in fact has a benefit to an extent, depending on what side you're on, in that if there's let's say there's only 100 tons of gold on Earth. Well, we use gold in manufacture. We use it for electrical conductors to reduce corrosion and increase conductivity and things like that. Silver kind of isn't quite the same way now, but silver's used quite a bit. It used to be used for filmmaking, manufacture of film.
Fillings too, right?
Well, gold is the same. Yeah.
And gold, yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of different things like that. Now, the problem comes when you want to virtually exchange said commodity. And that's why I think crypto makes more sense. Some crypto, I'm not all of them. Okay, Dogecoin, really. It's still early days, so it's possible to sort this out at some point. And I think like enough great minds working on it will sort it out. But how do you effectively send the gold that you have to somebody to purchase a thing on the other side of the planet? I just bought something on eBay, something from like Russia. I bought this cool, I don't know, Russian doll or something, one of those nesting dolls, and oh, cool. How do I pay them? In gold. Well, that means I have to physically put the gold in some way inside of some container and ship it to them, so they can then accept it, test it, verify it, and then say, okay, yep, you're good, and then ship me the thing. And there's, at that point, very little verification of the process. Crypto actually has kind of a lot of that stuff built in, And it is finite. Okay, what you're talking about might be possible with quantum computers, like kind of cracking the code, so to speak. That might be an issue. But then again, it's the same thing between like the black hat hackers and the white hat hackers. It's an ongoing battle to try to level the playing field. If somebody figures out a way to bypass something, somebody's going to figure out a way to put another wall. And that's inevitable.
Counterfeiting on multiple phases.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: how is that worse than the current system that we have, where like governments control everything and are completely like outside the scope of the public? Like you can't touch them, you can't affect them, you can't change the rules, you could do nothing about it. That is not even part of the voting process. All you can do is vote for talking heads, people who have pretty ads and they say sweet words and whisper things into your ears and say, I'm going to fix it. This time it's going to be better. You know, like that's all you get. We can't control the monetary system as individuals. And so it's like, well, yeah, crypto's not perfect, but it's a lot better. It is a huge step in the right direction compared to where we are now with the current system. And if it works, as long as there's no people dipping their fingers into the pie and fidgeting with things, you won't have these inflationary forces, because there can't be any inflationary forces. The only way to create more crypto is to do work. You can't just like push a button or tell somebody, yeah, hey, throw another $1 trillion at it. That you just can't do that. You actually have to consume energy and use computing power to get more of it. And even then, there's a point of diminishing returns. Like Bitcoin is getting to the point where there's fewer and fewer Bitcoin left to harvest. And so it's like, well, we're going to get to the point where eventually it's not worth the energy to get any more.
What if the whole idea of the economy is kind of a brainwashing exercise? Now, this sounds all conspiracy theory and woo, but
I'm already on board.
But like, what if this whole idea that we need reciprocation, all of that stuff, is like a built-in psychology in order to control us?
Ooh. Oh, that's
like, what if the, like normal is not caring about that shit? Like you see everyone as an appendage of yourself. Like, if my brother hurts, I hurt. Like that's like what we are trained to suppress and say we need to gather. We need to take care of number one. And it's like, over time, that was just positively reinforced until we thought, like, that's the ultimate thing. Like, things like altruism seem very honorable. We recognize that, but they're also like, I can't be bothered with doing that.
That's a really interesting point. And like you'd said earlier, there is no control. There's no like anarchistic control. Like, what if there was no force compelling you to do anything in mass? Like, huge
like the biggest
population.
problem I see with money and the government controlling it is they just tell you what it's worth, and then and that's it. Like, you don't have a verification process, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And if there was an absence of any kind of medium of exchange, like, how do people behave? Like, we know in small scale, you have like Burning Man, and people on a small scale do get along. Like, they help each other. Look at like natural disasters and stuff. People do all kind. They give of themselves without any expectation of any kind of return over and over and over again. And to me, I see those kinds of things and I think, is that the natural state? Is that how humans naturally are? Is this system constructed to manipulate humans to do the bidding of the few for their benefit and not for ours? Like, if we were left alone, would we just get along and help each other with no reason, no expectation of any kind of compensation?
Is there like a branch or field of economics that you might describe as like philosophical economics? I mean, I feel like what we do here is like talk about how we could do exchanges differently.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever really like considered or even tested in practice in mass, you know?
I don't think it has been. And I don't think something like that quite exists.
I mean,
because everything always comes down to
that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because everything comes down to dividing everything down to numerical boxes, looking at numbers and stuff and statistics. And yeah, that's valuable for evaluating, like, okay, how can you actually test something without having numbers? That makes sense. But yeah, maybe the analysis of things like this is bigger than that. Maybe it's more nuanced and nebulous, like a more amorphous. There is no way to quantify these kinds of things, or if you start to do that, you lose sight of that human element.
Yeah, you might find new currencies, or you know, your currency between one person may differ from that of another person. It's what they value and what you have to offer aligning.
Yeah,
you know, and that could be a million fucking things. You know,
like, you're absolutely right. Like,
yeah.
I fully believe that is how things ought to be. There shouldn't be a like set thing, right? This is the thing that we all use. You know, I hereby decree this is the currency of the world.
Yeah.
No, you know,
it's like I'm not just a farrier. I might be a good singer, and you know, you really want to hear a song with some real soul behind it or something, you know?
or you could exchange multiple things too.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this particular small pocket of people, they're really into little glass baubles or something, so that's what they like. And then this group over here, well, they like, maybe they use crypto or something, and that's their thing, and that's okay. And honestly, if you leave people alone, they'll figure out a way to make it mesh.
Yeah.
You don't
Every
need
relationship is an economy.
Yeah. No. Damn. Yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, that's good.
It really is. Like, you like people in various degrees based on how you feel doing things for them, how you feel about the things they do for you, and you know,
and the things you do together.
Yeah.
Like, because that's pretty valuable too.
Yeah.
Man, did we just solve every problem?
I swear one of these days we're gonna have the super fan sit and watch all these shows and just like map out the perfect universe.
Well, I do actually, like, it's one of my goals to kind of have the unifying theory of human interaction, like how the reduce everything down to
great, that's how all great dictatorships start.
Yeah. Well, okay, the point is that it would be a theory and not necessarily something that would be imposed on people. I wouldn't say everybody has to do that. Being an anarchist, I would be, and an open source person, I'd be like, hey, here's an idea. What do you think? That, like, let people use it how they want.
By the way, my work is implementing some new software and having it tweaked and stuff. And just today I was like, I wonder how that software is rated because I don't like it that much. And I looked it up and it was like 4.5 stars out of 5. And somewhere in the little Google search, I saw, is this program open source? And I clicked on it and it was like, yeah, you can totally tweak it. And I was like, what are we paying these people for to be like, oh, well, you can't really do that. And all this time I'm like, man, I wish I knew enough about code that I could just get in here and make this thing do what it needs to do.
Well, it just so happens you might possibly know a guy that knows a little bit about coding. Well, yeah, like if it's open source, okay. I don't, I'm totally in favor.
Is there an in between open source and not? Because it sounded like it was kind of like that. Like
there are closed source forks, kind of like Linux. Like Red Hat Linux is like a paid, you have to buy it, but Linux as a core thing is completely open source. So it's totally within the structure of things to have a fork that somebody does something and closes it off and charges some money for it. So maybe they do something really good. I'm going to guess. Sounds like they probably don't. But you could easily, like Chrome.
No, I could see how it is good. It's just we have a unique situation. But, so like I'm trying not to judge them too harshly based on that. But
yeah, and I'm all in favor with paying somebody for doing something awesome. Yeah. Like even if you're giving it away, like, well, hey, can you take a donation? Because that's cool. Like, I honestly don't want to take something for free that somebody put a lot of work into.
Yeah, let's normalize that, by the way. Like don't feel like what something costs is like the ceiling either. Mm-hmm. Like if you really loved something, like throw a little extra cash that way, like
give them a tip or something, like, hey, nice job.
Or or just say, I think this is how valuable this is. I think you should ask other people for this, like boost them. Be like, hey, you know what? This is what I would pay. Other people probably would too,
Oh, yeah. And even actually in that vein, even if you don't have the financial resources to pay somebody, giving a really good review or trying to upsell it on your YouTube channel, whatever means you have, like that's valuable too. It doesn't always have to come down to money.
Hey, here's our currency. If you, the viewer, are still enjoying this conversation, please share this video. Like it takes 2 seconds, just share it.
Yeah.
And maybe give a little of your own thoughts, like to entice somebody. Like, here's what I think, and here's what got me thinking about that. Like
exactly. And comment down there. It doesn't cost you anything to share. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Like, it doesn't cost you anything to put a comment down there, get in a conversation with somebody about something we talked about. That's valuable. I
would love to make a living off this show, but I'd be more than happy if it just like got people talking.
Yeah, well,
and I never saw a cent.
Exactly. I feel the same way. Like it would be nice to not have to work, so that we could just do this all the time and upload episodes every fucking day. That would be great.
I think about this all the time. I'm like, man, I just wish I could just be doing the show every day.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but it's not about money.
No.
Like you can't take anything with you. This is something that has been with me for a very long time. Like, when you die, all of the things you've acquired, all of the money that you have, the wealth or whatever, however you measure things, is going to be taken by somebody else. And it won't matter anymore. No one's going to care about that Lambo because it's not yours anymore. You're dead. You're probably dust or worms are eating you or something like that.
Party
So
time for all the little worms.
exactly. So I've kind of come to the point where, to me, something that gives me fulfillment is making a difference, making a positive impact, like challenging things and encouraging people to think and come up with new ideas and talk about stuff. Well, no one else is solving this shit, so we're gonna have to solve it ourselves, I guess.
You know what? Like, nobody can tell you what a currency isn't. And we probably could actually live our lives if we just stopped working and said, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Because if our conversation changes somebody, impacts somebody, I'm sure they would like give us dinner. Like, we could just walk around having like engaging, thoughtful conversations with people. And if they were like enamored with that, we could go to dinner and they would treat us to a meal or something. And we could live.
The converse could be true too. Like, we have skills, so we could employ those skills to help other people in exchange for that too. I think that's a good thing. I still think we need some kind of at points, some kind of intermediate something, but it doesn't have to be a specific thing. It could be whatever, anything you want, anything you can imagine.
There's also empathy.
Yeah.
In that, like, if you can see, it's pouring rain, somebody's got a flat tire, and like they don't have a tire iron or anything, and you stop and pull over and take 10 minutes and get drenched and help them change their tire or whatever, are you going to really sit there and be like, well, okay, what are your skills? What can you do for me?
Satisfaction comes from having helped people.
Exactly.
There
doesn't have to be reciprocation.
No, it doesn't, because the reciprocation is the satisfaction at having done something great. Yeah. I'll tell you a story. It's story time, everybody. All right. Hey, sit down on the rug of storytelling. There was this one time I was driving after hanging out at Sherry's late at night, and I was driving down I-5, kind of by like Tacoma Mall Boulevard or something, like 56
Boulevard.
Yeah, Tacoma Ball Boulevard. It was kind of like between 72nd and 56th exits. And I'm just cruising. This is way back when I was living at my parents' house and stuff, and so it was all about like staying away for as long as possible. So I'm driving around, listening to music, and I see these people pushing a car up a ramp, like an off ramp. Wait, they were pushing it up an on ramp, actually. So they're going the opposite direction towards this gas station. And I was like, well, I have tools. I don't know what's going on, but I'll just turn around. So I took the next exit and I turned around and I came back, turned around, and then went back and parked on the ramp and like walked up there. Of course, they barely moved. There were like two people trying to push this car, and there's this girl like steering. And I was like, hey, you need some help? And they're like, oh yeah, we're trying to push this car to the gas station because there's some problem with their car. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll help you. So I helped them push the car up. We got it up there. I was like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, everything's overheating. And we were coming back from Seattle, driving to Portland and stuff. And the car started overheating and kind of just crapped out on the side of the road. So we're just going to figure it out.
And that's back before cell phones and everything.
Yeah. Barely anybody had cell phones back then. And so I was like, well, I have a whole toolkit and stuff. And I actually kind of have like quite a lot of automotive repair experience. So let me see if I can help you. And turns out like the water pump was leaking. So like all of the coolant had squirted out of the seam on the water pump. And so the one guy went in there into the gas station and bought like a gallon of coolant, poured it in there. Of course, it just kept coming out. And so he started tightening things using the tools I had, and it was like tightening things and like, oh, it must be loose. Well, the gasket was actually damaged, so tightening wasn't necessary. And so he's tightening this one bolt, and you'll remember this, Casey, with the BMW special tool of like, you don't over tighten bolts. And he tightened this one little 10 millimeter bolt, and it went and snapped.
Oof.
So boom, okay, there's 3 bolts that hold the like the cover over the water pump, and now one's broken, so it's totally leaking. It just because it seemed like it was going to go, and then as soon as he hit that point, it was like, and then like all the coolant leaked out, and I'm like, oh fuck, oh this is bad. And so he's like, oh shit, well, what are we gonna do? We still have like, like 100 miles to drive back. And I'm like, well, why not buy like a tire repair kit and get that asphalt impregnated stuff, the sticky gummy stuff, and make a gasket out of that. And as luck would have it, the gas station had one of those kits. So he got that. And of course, it's missing a bolt. So it's now kind of open on the end, and there's no pressure there. So I thought, well, there's kind of a flange around the whole side. I've got some vice grips. We'll just clamp it on with a vice grip. And I clamped it on, and it worked. Like
That's some
no
fucking
leak.
MacGyver shit.
Yeah,
dude.
it was totally like, it totally didn't leak at all. And they were like, oh my God, thank you. This totally, okay, we should be good. And the guy's like, well, can I get your address? I'll send you the vice grips back. And I'm like, dude, these things cost me like $10. Keep them as a memento. Like we drove 100 miles with vice grips holding the engine together. Just keep it. That makes me feel great. And like I drove home, and it's like, hey, I fixed somebody's problem. Like if everybody did that, if everybody just the one time you see somebody that is in need of help, just help them. Just once.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there would be many problems left in the world after a year of everybody doing that.
It could be as simple as giving someone a ride or something. Like it doesn't have to be that much effort.
No, help an old lady across the street or something, just help somebody out when they need help.
Yeah, it could seem menial to you, but it would be the most meaningful thing in the world to them.
Yeah,
at a time. So.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you what, the rewards from helping people are priceless. Like the no amount of money in the world can give you that feeling of helping somebody in a really shitty situation. And it's telling because from what I understand, like the most wealthy people in the world are the most depressed.
Man, this is like the most enlightening and uplifting culmination of a discussion on inflation I ever would have imagined.
I know, like, oh my God. Holy shit. Wow.
Like that's telling, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Like the horrors of inflation led us to this like exchange of good deeds as currency and the good feeling that you get from it, and
well, and
the concept
actually,
of paying it forward.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is like it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what the powers that be decide. It doesn't matter the wars that they wage or the bullshit decisions they make. Us humans, we can just figure it out. Like, as long as we're empathetic and help somebody else, help somebody in need. You know, you see somebody that needs help, lend a hand.
Yeah.
Don't be a sucker. You know, there's a limit. You don't want to be the guy that gives away all your bread until you're starving and your kids are starving. That's too far. Know your limits, but you know, help people. And take a minute, just a few minutes out of your day. It doesn't take anything. We see it all the time. People that need help, just a little bit of help. All you need, somebody, you know, you're a mechanic and you see somebody on the side of the road trying to fix their car, just pull over and help them, you know?
And it doesn't have to like cost that much or be that much to make a huge impact. Like it could be like, you know, those pay it forward things at the coffee shops. Have you ever come across that?
Yeah.
And I've seen people trying to like shame the level of charity going on because they're like, you're supposed to just say no, oh no, thank you, you can pay it forward to the next person. And they're like, oh well, if you're the one that takes it, you're a piece of shit. But it's like, well, now you're saying that like needing charity somehow makes you a piece of shit. And it's like, what if that's all you really needed to just make you feel that much better that day, because like you were just having a shit day and or whatever, you know, like why do you have to validate how much of a shit day you're having in order to be like worthy of charity?
Exactly. I think everybody is like a person who could use a little charity from time to time, and it doesn't have to be monetary. The focus on money is the problem. That's a really good point. Don't be ashamed to accept help from people. Well, that's why there's homeless people and drug addicts all over the place. Like,
that's true.
You know,
that's the untalked about like reason of homelessness is like not wanting that helping hand for pride.
Yeah,
I'm sure that is a portion.
Well, and as we talked about in the homelessness episode, that the reasons are varied. And just they are for everything. I don't know. It's just like, take a minute out of your day to help somebody. Try to think good things and help people when you can. If you see somebody that needs help, help them. Like, you don't have to help everybody. You can't help everybody. Just saying. So help one person once or something, and and go from there.
You might help everybody. It just takes several degrees of your good deed passing up the chain.
Oh, that's a good point. That person that you helped might be somebody that makes a huge, they might make a huge difference in the future.
Yeah, like the person that picked up the lady that fell in the gutter in the early 1800s or something, gave birth to the person who would become Albert Einstein and, you know, give us all these great scientific premises and you know, like great shit could come from that one little act.
Well, like, and like we had
could have made the difference. That could have been the split in the timelines or whatever.
Well, like we did the butterfly effect episode, and like one tiny thing, which to you might seem insignificant, could be world changing.
Yep.
And you don't know the implications of your actions.
And those stories happen all the time. And they like the pretty much any inspiring story you read is about this chance occurrence. This like thing you wouldn't think twice about, and had you not paid attention, you never would have known you actually caused, you know.
And so be that person, like what's the saying? Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the person that has made that difference in somebody's life, that brought them to do great things, or inspired them, or made a change that made a difference.
You know what? Oh my
and
God.
Don't be a dick. That's the thing, because you could do great harm by being an asshole too. So just don't do it.
This totally ties into a thought I was having earlier today around lunch. The idea of the golden rule is do unto others as you would have done unto you, right? Which is a very like egocentric view. It's like, oh well, I really like being hit on, so I'm gonna hit on this girl, but that girl like hates being hit on, and there's this weird like disconnect, almost an incompatible economy,
Yeah.
And then the platinum rule is like do unto others as they would have done unto them, but it's like that requires a certain measure of mind reading to like know what they want. Like you're seeking out what they want, and like that's almost a reverse economy where it's like I really want to pay that person, I got to find out how I can do that. Instead of they have something I want, I need to find a way to pay them, so what if there's this like in between or beyond or whatever, where you should do unto others as you're able to do for what they clearly need?
Oh yeah. Just do what you can within your means. Don't overextend yourself.
Seize the day. You look everywhere, you're going to find some degree, however small. It could be, oh, can you hand me that stapler? Yeah, sure. It could be that simple.
Yeah.
That simple, and you'll make some effect on their day. It could just be the stress of being like, man, where did I put my fucking stapler?
Yeah, exactly.
And you fix that, like
it's like the people in that car that needed help. I went and helped them. I was already going to stay up really late driving around anyway, so it didn't matter to me. And $10 worth of vice grips didn't matter.
Yeah.
And I went home feeling amazing. Like I made a difference. I know it's small, but you make enough small differences, small improvements over time turn into a massive improvement in the big picture. Like, and that's the thing. It's like everybody has a part in this. Every single person. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of stuff. You don't have to even you don't have to look a certain way or act a certain way. Everybody can make a difference. Like, well, oh God, I'm gonna tear up now thinking about that. Like, shit.
If there isn't such a thing as philosophical economics, this will always be the most beautiful discussion of philosophical economics, because it's the one that spurred the idea.
Ooh, imagine if we created a new school of economics.
We really did, I think.
I think
maybe not even a new one. We just rediscovered the original one.
Yeah, I think we have. Oh, holy shit, man!
It's like digging up a fossil and being like, "Oh, that's how they did that."
and I feel like there's a lot more we could go into this, but it's like I want to involve everybody else. Like, tell us your thoughts on this, because we're only two people. We have our own biases and thoughts on things, and it takes a village. Like you need lots of ideas and lots of people thinking about things and proposing all these concepts to really get like a good sense of how things should work. Oh man, this is like, interestingly, the most simultaneously anarchist and socialist video that we've ever done.
See, I swear there aren't that many differences.
No, there's
They,
not.
mostly it's buzzwords and emotion.
Mm-hmm. Well,
That
and you say a name or state a label, and all of a sudden everybody's like feeling a certain way. And it's like,
exactly.
well, yeah, ask yourself, why do you feel that way? Why do you have that reaction? That's the first question you should ask. You shouldn't even be worried about whatever topic is being discussed. Ask yourself, why am I feeling the way I feel? Um, I don't want to say that because I feel like now we're on some kind of NSA list because they don't want that.
Yeah, or like we're starting to sound like those traveling like uh, invocational or what's the word? Fucking
I don't know what you're
too much
talking about.
beer. They make you feel, I don't know, amped up
Oh,
or
like motivational speakers?
inspirational. Yeah, motivational
Yeah.
speakers. Yeah,
Like Tony Robbins. Hey, everybody.
I really had to work for that thought.
Okay, I think we've had enough beer, but I think it's actually really clear that us drinking a lot of beer and having these kinds of conversations yields brilliance. Oh man, because oh man, yeah, we certainly have the same goals, and I think that should be a message to everybody that feels that, well, like, is getting all bent out of shape about people that feel differently.
Yeah, I'm thinking back some some great memories I've had were just random acts of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was down in California. I was a student. I wasn't working. I had a very small budget,
Oh, I
and
thought you were gonna say you lived in like the Haight Ashbury neighborhood. Back
but
in the
I'm down.
'60s, man, the LSD, man, that was some good shit.
Did too much LDS and stuff. But no, I'm down in San Diego for a day, and it happened to be Comic Con, so like I really wanted to go to this Brazilian restaurant, and I park in a lot, and I go over, and it's $150 to park in this lot that's like
Woo.
nowhere near Comic Con.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, never mind. We'll have to find a new restaurant. And this guy walks up and he says, I got you. And he just pays for the parking. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You just paid $150 for a stranger to park so they could get dinner? And I was like, wow. And that was like a great dinner. And I will never forget that dinner. And I wouldn't have had that without that random $150 free parking.
Who you probably don't even know that person's name.
I don't. It was literally like a 5-second interaction with that person.
Holy shit, dude.
But they would
Okay.
never get anything back from me unless they like see this episode and it brings them to tears. And by getting teared up, they're like, "Oh, I need to clean my glasses," and then a bullet like whizzes by their head, and they're like, "Someone was trying to assassinate me," and they take a dive that like protects them from like becoming the next savior of the universe. And maybe we do get paid back, but.
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm getting teared up, but I might be. Not ashamed to admit that, and nobody ever should be.
Oh, I've been a wreck all week. My cat dying, and
Fuck.
I've been watching reruns of Benson, which is a really like laugh out loud funny show, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be like a touching moment, and I'm just like,
Yeah, I know. Oh.
Yeah, it's just like you gotta grieve, you gotta feel.
Mm-hmm.
I suppressing any emotion, I feel like is a bad thing. Even anger,
Mm-hmm.
like people try to like shame you for getting angry or being sad or crying and stuff like that. It's like if you feel it, do it.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And people who know me know that I'm all about stoicism, which is not being a Vulcan, by the way.
Yeah.
Like feeling emotions is fine. It's a good thing.
Right. Just don't let it control your
Yeah.
decision making and stuff like that. Like it
Yeah.
should be like a one-way system, you know, like
And like sometimes you have to just kind of let it all out, you know? Oh, wait.
yeah.
Did I invoke Tears for Fears? Oh, fuck.
Shout.
Let it all out. Oh, man. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, this is,
Wow.
I feel like man, this,
I didn't really think this would be one of our best episodes, but
it
kind of
is.
turned out to be, didn't
It really is. And
Wow.
honestly, if we see in the comments that people like shed some tears at some moments, I will be happy about that.
There should be like an award for first conversation to make people shed tears over economics.
Like who has done that? Like seriously, who has turned economics into an emotional thing? Like nobody, only
Really?
us.
Yeah. Why don't we just make our own awards? I mean, we got this whole conversation about why don't we just make our own currency and have it be all about like feelings and shit.
Yeah. We should.
Yeah. The
Damn.
kitchen sink microscopy awards. Yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Why don't we do it?
Yeah,
Who says we can't?
Well,
Who says that like we need more than 10 people watching us? Like, you know, why not?
Yeah, I got a 3D printer. I could 3D print like a special award for everybody, like hand 3D printed, just for you.
I like that.
Yeah, and you'll get an award, like a physical thing in the mail.
Just as a little, hey, we think you're awesome, and
yeah,
you know. Well, now I'm tearing up.
Let's see. Oh God. Okay.
That's a wholesome motherfucking That's a wholesome motherfucking thing, man.
Oh man.
Oh jeez.
Wow. How did we get here from inflation? Honestly, I don't want to know how, because like every single thing that we do is golden, man. And people get all like religious and stuff, like, oh, I need religion. Like, no, you need kitchen sink microscopy.
Yeah,
which is not, you know, to keep in mind, we're not cultists. It's not about us. This is like an open source thing. Like,
don't start a cult.
Yeah, it's more about the conversation going on down there than us. I mean, we're the like catalyst, I guess. Like, we get drunk and come up with ideas, and then everybody else.
I get warm and fuzzy feelings seeing conversations start between people I've never even met. You know, like just going at it based off the show, and or going at it with us even, you know, like challenging our own thinking. I love that.
Yeah.
You know, from time to time get a contrary comment. And it gets me thinking again, you know, and like there will be some really good points, and there will be some learning opportunities for others, you know, and it's great, you know. That's an economy in itself, conversation.
Oh, totally. It totally is. Like, man,
everybody gets something from a conversation.
Exactly. Like,
not so much from a lecture.
No, and that's my point that I had earlier about, like, you know, have a dialogue, not a monologue.
Right.
You know, it should be a conversation where what somebody says is part of that conversation.
I feel like I would have learned biology so much better if it were less about lecture and more about conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually, I've said this before, and actually one of our guests was the very professor of this class, but my favorite class ever was brain and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, there were no prerequisites for science or anything, right? So there were business majors in there, people who had never taken any kind of science class, or at least never paid attention in one, and they were giving their thoughts on how the brain works. And that was the fucking coolest class ever.
Oh God, yeah, it sounds like it. Oh,
like you were watching people learn so much with no prerequisites just by sitting in on the conversation. And you were seeing people, and I was one of these people who was being exposed to a lay person's point of view on something that actually shined a light on, maybe the answer.
Yeah.
Like you can get plenty from the most unlikely source.
Well, yeah.
Isn't that the real value?